2, 1.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah Charles-King and I will be your host for this evening. Now I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to Being the Best with Bipolar panel discussion, which has been set up by Bipolar UK, a national charity dedicated to supporting individuals with the much misunderstood and often devastating condition of bipolar. Now, for the first 30 minutes, you have an opportunity to hear from a panel of very inspirational individuals and how they navigate their own experiences of living with bipolar to achieve their dreams and their career goals. This will then be followed by a 20-minute Q&A session with the panelists, and the CEO of Bipolar UK, Simon Kitchen, as well, is here, and they'll answer some of the questions which have been submitted over the last few days by you. Now, before I introduce you to our wonderful speakers, a little bit about me, just in a little bow. My name's Leah Charles-King, as I mentioned. I'm a TV and radio presenter by trade, do many other creative things as well, like making telly and public speaking and things like that. I've had a very interesting, extraordinary career, and I'm grateful for it. But there was always this underlying flip side, which was very dark, very irritable, depressed, suicidal thoughts, which very much clashed. But it went in tandem with the ups and downs of my career. And so we just assumed I was moody. I say we, meaning my family and friends. And, you know, I was probably an absolute nightmare. So about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with depression and I was put on medication. But somewhere between being super depressed, very suicidal, not even leaving my bed, not leaving my home for over a year, no longer being able to function, I then suddenly overnight almost became very hyperactive, energetic, not eating, not sleeping, but very impulsive, putting myself in very dangerous situations. And because I didn't know what mental illness was, even when I was suffering depression back then and anxiety, I didn't know what it was. I was as ignorant as anybody else. My family and friends didn't. It went very much unnoticed until I got very afraid of myself, in a sense of my impulsivity and my suicidal thoughts, that I actually wrote a suicide note to my GP. And that was the beginning of how I got help for diagnosis of bipolar. Now, that was 8 years ago, but I kept it a secret. The stigma, the shame, the fear, the embarrassment, I was just mortified. And at the same time, my career started going up on the rise and I felt like a fraud. So last year, after 7 years of keeping it secret, I came out on social media and it's been the most empowering thing that I've done to date. And so as I sit here with you today, this symbolizes something that I never could have imagined, to be honest with you, and that's speaking publicly about my dirty little secret and just owning it and being unapologetic about it, that I'm Leah, I have bipolar. So what? So I have some brilliant other people that kind of have pretty much the same attitude as me, I think. And I will get back to them. I will introduce them, as to say, in just a few moments. But I just wanted to say to you, though, that if you are in crisis or you're feeling unwell throughout this conversation or afterwards, anything like that, please reach out to our support of offline. Okay, so if you go to bipolaruk.org/crisis/support, there's a list of information there for you. Okay, so that's super important. It's all there for you. Now, since receiving my own diagnosis, it's given me a lot of strength. Bipolar UK are a fantastic charity, and I've now even become their latest ambassador, which I'm really delighted about. In 2020, Bipolar UK has seen that it's a particularly challenging time for people living with and affected by bipolar disorder, and many people experiencing increased feelings of anxiety, depression, and a desire to be more alone during the pandemic. Our hope is for today that the panel will be able to inspire you to feel better supported and motivated during this difficult and unfamiliar time. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you our panelists for this evening. So guys, when I say your name, can you just give us a wave? I'm joined today by actress and co-creator of the Speak Out Like Brenda campaign, Natasha Naomi Rea. Where are you, Natasha? There she is, waving up there. We got award-winning actress and founder of Mini Productions, April Kelley. Hi, April. Podcast host and mental health mentor, Belle, is there as well. Hi, Emma. Mental health advocate and SAS Who Dares Wins recruit, Bethany Robinson. Hi, Bethany. And we have got mental health advocate and inspirational speaker. He's also an OBE, I'll let you know. It's Steve Gilbert OBE. And hi, Steve. And last but not least, we have Bipolar UK CEO, Simon Kitchen, who'll be jumping in for the Q&A session as well a bit later on. Hi, everyone. It's great to have you, and welcome, of course, to all of our viewers who are jumping on as we speak. So to kick things off, it will be good to start at the very beginning and hear from a couple of our panelists on their experiences with bipolar and how this affected their lives. So we'll start with Natasha. Now, Natasha, you were diagnosed with bipolar in your teens. When you first received your diagnosis, did this impact your lifestyle or your career aspirations in any way? And if so, how did you move past this to become the actress and author that you are today?
Well, when I was 14, that was when I first took an overdose. So that was when they first thought, okay, there's something not right. But my mum says it was about 11, 12. So they never actually diagnosed me with bipolar. They said I had a severe mood disorder. At the time, I'd just done my first acting job. I was also with somebody who was in quite a high profile show that went on for quite a while. I went through it with my mum and my dad. And then when I got into my late teens, I kind of went the other way. So I went from being really, really low to then after the overdose, I went the other way, and I kind of, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. And it's interesting because now if you speak to my friends when I was a teenager, they go, it's really weird because you'd get obsessed like with Ribena ice lollies, and then we wouldn't hear off you for 2 weeks, and then you'd be in bed. And looking back, actually, and then it's like, oh my gosh, so it was affecting me still. And it wasn't till then I had my little boy in my early 20s that they then actually said, yeah, it's bipolar. But I think it spurred me on. I think it gives you a lot of fight. I really, really do. You know, I think a lot of us, you know, can agree that, you know, I'm not going through a great time at the moment. My mum's in hospital with COVID. So that's triggered me massively. And I think, you know, the Black Panther guy, I can't remember his full name, I always get it wrong, but he says sometimes you have to get, what is it?
Chadwick Boseman?
Yeah, he says it so well. Sometimes you have to get really, really knocked down to figure out what your fight is. And what you're actually fighting for is not maybe just right now in this moment, it's for people that are coming after you. So I think I kind of wanted to step up and go, you know what? Let's go toe to toe. And that's kind of the attitude that I've had with it.
I love that, Natasha. I mean, it's so honest, of course, and so transparent. And like you say, I think everyone on this panel and everyone watching, we're all going through something at the moment individually and globally. And so it's great that you're showcasing, like myself and everyone else, that there is life after diagnosis, and there are tools and ways that, you know, but going through what we go through gives us a certain fight. I mean, Steve, the same question to you. Can you remember from the time you were diagnosed, and how did you go about receiving a diagnosis to achieving an OBE for services to medical health? I mean, that is just amazing. It's quite an achievement, no?
Well, thank you. So back in 2008 and 2009, I had two very severe depressive episodes, which were accompanied with suicidal behavior. I was being treated for them under secondary mental health care, but I still kind of viewed them as being kind of one-offs. In 2010, there was a lot going on. The long story short is that I ended up having a manic episode. I was living with my friend's family. We had a big falling out. I just left. She was becoming increasingly concerned about me and tried to get me to go and see my psychiatrist. It just so happens that she'd parked her car outside a police station. So, of course, she's trying to shove me in a car. and I start screaming, and two police officers came over. I think they thought I was attacking her, but when she explained what was kind of going on, they said it's probably best to go in the police station. Of course, we went in and my friend explained what was going on. They then detained me under Section 136 of the Mental Health Act. So I had a Mental Health Act assessment in a police station. I actually spent time in a police cell. It was a Victorian police cell. And then I was detained under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act. I spent 21 days in hospital, which is a really short period of time compared to some of the time that people spend in. But it gave enough time for the doctors and the medical staff there to diagnose you with my bipolar disorder. So it was through crisis that I got my diagnosis. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, really. I don't really like the idea that I had to be detained, but if I hadn't, it can take a really long time to get that diagnosis. In terms of, you know, how I kind of went from that to where I am, I think I've always been a bit of a self-starter. And I've always wanted to be self-employed. And when I got the diagnosis of bipolar disorder, I knew I couldn't have a normal job. And I literally started off volunteering and then quite quickly became involved in more substantive pieces of work, a lot of it around the experiences of young Black men. And we know that there are, you know, just some awful experiences that are faced by young Black men, even kind of within the mental health sector. And one thing led to another, and it was just a case where people said, you know, could you do this? Sometimes I knew I could do it. Sometimes I knew I had to go away and do a lot of learning quite quickly. So I kind of backed myself and had a lot of support as well, a lot of support. And for me, the OBE in particular, you know, I share it with my best friend, Kathy. Kathy's my guardian angel. Kathy is the woman that if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here right now. So for me, it's got my name on it, but it's a shared achievement between, you know, the people that have supported me. It's quite a nice bit of bling though.
Do you know what, Steve? It's remarkable. I think what some of the other panelists, I'm sure, will say as well. There's that common thread that, as devastating as bipolar can be and has been in our lives at some point, it's also been a thread that has propelled us to do things that we never imagined. Like you say, your background was not even in mental health, but it was because of your mental illness that is actually giving you a purpose in this world. As somebody who is now an advocate for mental illness, it's remarkable. For me to even be among you guys, for someone who's kept herself in a shell for so many years, it's wonderful. And talking of careers, Bethany, now you are a teacher as well as an athlete and a mental health advocate. How do you find time to do all of this, by the way? And did your bipolar diagnosis inspire any of your career choices, like going on a mainstream TV show, may I add?
Yeah, so the athlete thing, basically, I'm a lot more stable now than I used to be, and the sport is kind of my medicine. Like, I have to go to the gym 5 days a week, so it's sort of not a compromise. It's something that I love to do, and it helps keep me stable. So that just kind of fed into my life. I started doing it just after my diagnosis, after they tried me on a load of meds, and they were like, oh, you could try and like change your lifestyle as well. And I was 18 stone at the time, so I needed to go through quite a dramatic lifestyle change. Found CrossFit, fell in love with it, and then it must have been like 2 months in, I started competing in the sport, even though I was still big. And that just gave me, like, I was compelled to just keep going and lift heavier and try harder. And now I compete quite a lot in it. And that also led on to going on to SAS, because I knew that I was quite strong and I knew that I could do a lot of the things, but physically, but like mentally, I wanted to test myself, because I know that you're kind of not allowed to be in the military if you've got bipolar disorder, because if you've had like more than 2 episodes of depression, they question it. So I wanted to prove that wrong, for one. And I also knew that I'd been in like the deepest, darkest places of my mind, and I knew they couldn't one up that. No matter what they did, you couldn't go past what I'd already been through. And that was true. There was nothing that even touched what I'd been through. and also so I'm a teacher, but I'm a teacher in a social emotional mental health school, so it really fed into that. I feel like I understand the kids better than other people that haven't been through a mental health experience in any way. So yeah, and I feel like I can connect with them on another level. But again, although I am stable with the productivity that kind of comes along with the like hypermania, I definitely have that. So I'm just very driven, but I always keep a monitor on it to make sure I'm not overworking myself. But yeah, that's how I fit it in, is bipolar, the gift of that little bit of hypermania.
And it is, isn't it? It's just that little bit, of course, it needs to be controlled, as we know, but there is that part of it that is what propels us forward. But we know that there's that flip side that is so dark and so destructive and so dangerous for us. And so if we could just continue to do things like this, where we can listen to each other's stories and be inspired. So thank you for sharing that, Bethany. We've also now got April. So April, I know that you built a very successful career since your bipolar diagnosis in the field of acting and producing, of course. Were you able to use your experience of living with bipolar to your advantage in any way? And were there any particular challenges that you faced along the way?
I'd like to say that I keep getting told my internet's unstable, so I feel personally attacked. So hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, I struggle with being called successful. I'm not going to lie to you, because I do believe that I won't speak to everyone else here, but living with bipolar, I'm very good at putting my best face first and forward. So I agree with you, Bethany. It was kind of my medication to start with, because I struggled since the age of 15, and I didn't get a diagnosis till I was 27. But I did get a real good concoction of a pick a mix of medication, where which I mean, everyone knows if you're on different medication, it's just carnage. So at the age of 21, whilst I was at drama school, I know the other actors out there will appreciate when you get to play many other characters that aren't yourself. That's great, sign me up. And then I just realized that I couldn't work for anyone else. Even before my diagnosis, I just thought, I don't know how I'm actually going to be able to hold a job down. So with the brilliance of what bipolar gives us, and there is a lot there, and I know there's a lot of people watching this thinking, no, there's not. No, there's not. I don't know how to do this. And I'm telling you, there is. And my dad, when I was really poorly, still occasionally does it. He usually just sits up all night with me now, but he used to take me to service stations. Because it's no one's destination. Everyone is going or coming back from something, and he knew I couldn't be seen there. So I was able to take that plunge and go, well, why don't I just start something that I'm passionate about and I can throw myself into? And you know, we've got nothing to lose. I think that's what doesn't stop us. You know, we spend day after day struggling, and if we get out of bed, that job done. So why the hell don't we go after what we want to go after? It's been a struggle, and I feel very thankful to have my business partner Sarah, but the challenges have actually come more recently by knowing my diagnosis and navigating that in work life. But what it has given me is a voice, and I think representation on our screens is minimal, and that's being generous. So the way I push forward and hope the trajectory of success, if you want to call it that, for me it's a lifeline. As long as I can get out of bed and continue doing what I want to do, is to make sure more of our stories are told, because there's a reason why people don't understand bipolar, is because it's not enough out there. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But the challenges are tougher. They're tougher now. I know what it is. Ignorance was bliss to a certain extent.
See, that's very interesting. Like you, I was diagnosed late. I mean, I'm in my 40s now. I was diagnosed in my early 30s. And from the diagnosis, I felt like, yes, I know the beast I'm fighting, so I can fight this now. Obviously, it turned out like that. You know, I've been to war with my mind for the last 8 years, and I still am every day. But I felt different. I felt like getting that, it's like, okay, I just need to get to know who you are and what you're about. When I get to know you, I'm coming for you. It's all right.
I always so I was just going to say, I always describe it as the roommate I never asked for. And I think it's, you know, it's not paying rent. And then you bring in borderline personality disorder. So bipolar's got like a girlfriend and you're just like, oh my God. Also, Leah, as if you're in your 40s, stop it.
And maybe that could be another, you know, good thing that comes out of it. I don't know.
Benjamin Button.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe something in the medication. I'm not saying that. I don't know. Okay. Good things. Just good things. Anyway, let's move on swiftly to the gorgeous Emma. Thank you, by the way, for that, April. Emma, I know that you're really passionate about using your voice to empower others with bipolar, not only through your podcast, you have a fantastic podcast, but you're also a mentor as well. Now, have you experienced a lot of negative stigmas and stereotypes yourself, like I did? And how do you inspire people to overcome those feelings of the stigmas that it can trigger? Because that was the thing, those were my chains. Those are the things I could not let go of. That stigma is real.
I think for me personally, I haven't actually experienced a lot of stigma. I witness it often, and I also obviously speak with lots of people who experience it, and it saddens me. But what I do know is that when I got diagnosed, I made it my business to learn everything about bipolar that I could possibly learn, because what I believe and what I found true for me is that the more confident I felt about it, the less anyone could come at me about anything. So the more I educated myself, when people come, and don't get me wrong, people come and say clumsy things all the time, but because I feel so confident about it and I've learned everything about it, and I took the time to get to know myself and understand that I have to, like you've all said, cohabit with this. I can't fight it, it's going to go away, and then bang, you know, old Emma's gone and, you know, it's all fine and everything's normal. Because let's face it, who's normal anyway? I don't believe I've met a single normal person ever, bipolar or not. Don't think it exists, right? Neither does perfect. So but the more confident I felt, the less any clumsy conversations or assumptions would affect me, because I know what I'm doing and I know what it is. So for me, I just say to people, learn about the condition that you have, learn about yourself, learn about the conditioning that has also helped shape your behaviors that also then become triggers for your mental health condition, and really learn about you. And then, do you know what, even if people are clumsy, it's like when we go to a dance class, right? If you go and you start learning dancing and someone stands on your toe, they didn't necessarily always mean to stand on your toe, but if you're a good dancer, you can guide them where to go, right? So this is kind of how I feel about it, and I feel really passionate about educating ourselves, and that's what I encourage others to do. And I suppose the way that I do that is by modeling that in how I speak and not being apologetic in how I talk about it. For example, someone came to me very close to me years ago and said, you know, I think suicide is selfish. How could they do that? Blah, blah, blah. And obviously with bipolar, many people experience suicidal episodes and ideation and planning and action, sadly, sometimes. And I had to take a deep breath because inside I know from experiencing that it definitely doesn't come from a selfish place. It comes from a place of not wanting to burden the people you love anymore and believing that these people are better off without you. And that I don't believe is selfish in any way. So I had to take a deep breath, settle myself and say, this person is just a bit clumsy, and educate, right? So that's what I do, what I model, what I encourage others to do. And I know sometimes it can feel frightening to learn about something like bipolar, because like we've said, certainly for me, I got diagnosed late. I got diagnosed at 29, and ignorance is bliss. But the more we know, the more empowered we become in our space. We own it. And guess what? People can't dent us. They might step on our toes, but they won't break them, right? So that's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. It's so inspirational, because bipolar is very layered, isn't it, guys? Like you say, you go literally from the high highs to the depths of hell, it feels like, and you bounce back again. But that education is key. And I know certainly for many people that I've met with it, including myself, the more I've gotten to know what it is, the more I've been able to form this Leah 2.0, so to speak, who is actually a much nicer person, I would imagine, than the old person would have been. So there are ways, obviously, to navigate it, but to gain strength from that. So thank you, Emma. Now, 2020 has obviously been a very difficult and unprecedented year for everyone. Steve, has the COVID-19 pandemic had a particular impact on your own personal mental health? And if so, how have you been coping?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely has. I think what Emma said about trying to find out all about it, as soon as I got my diagnosis, the books were ordered from Amazon. I was reading everything. My best friend was reading everything. I never fought the diagnosis. I wanted to know all I could. And I have applied the same philosophy for the past 10 years. So kind of coming into COVID, I knew that not just me, but I knew that everybody was going to be affected. And actually, I felt quite lucky that I already know my weaknesses, and I already know where I'm going to struggle. So I really kind of drew on all of that experience. Try to be very, very organized. I mean, because I'm self-employed, I'm already used to kind of working from home. But actually I spend a lot of time on the road. So I kind of had to kind of reset up the home office and just get really, really organized. I think partly the thing that affected my health quite a lot was the racism and the disproportionate impact of COVID. But with all of this, I just tried to find a level of peace. I know that I can't do everything, and I think in the past I've tried to kind of do too much, and I'm still always at risk of that. But just trying to find peace. That sounds quite woolly, but
it's true.
You got to fight. You got to. I've got to look after me and the people around me, and some days that means you don't get out of bed. You just, stay in your pajamas, you go and have some breakfast, you go back to bed, you go and have some lunch, you watch crap on telly, you just survive. And I think one of the things that is quite weird for me is apparently now I have a public profile and I have this OBE, but I'm still me, and I'm still someone that lives with a really serious mental illness. And there are days when I struggle beyond all belief. I just don't beat myself up about that anymore. You take it as it comes. But that's taken 10 years to get to this point. And it's not easy. But I am thankful for my experience to date.
You are spot on. Just everything you said there, I can really, really relate to. It is a long-term thing, but it is about not being so hard on yourselves at times. But it takes a while to get to that point, to tell yourself it's okay. Just, it's fine.
Yeah.
Today I was struggling. I'll admit that to you all. I've been really struggling all day. I've had a migraine. I didn't feel so great. And there are still days where, like you, like all of us, I struggle. I don't want to get out of my pajamas. And actually think, if I could be like a Hugh Hefner character, I would live in pajamas. Seriously, I actually legitimately would. I would do this right now in my pajamas. But like April said earlier, when we are, especially as performers or just people like ourselves, when it's time to get up and show up, we get up and show up. And it's as simple as that. It doesn't matter. There's like two minds, obviously. And the one mind earlier is going, you can't do this. You're tired. You're knackered. God, why have you committed to this?
I shaved for this. I shaved for this. It, like, if you saw me 2 days ago, I look like a bear. You know, and that's a real, you know, it's a real thing. It's, I mean, I think one of the things that is so important to get across is that, and I noticed in the Q&A, someone said about kind of survivorship bias. It's such a thing, but I think that what we need to do is tell a better story of, do you know what? It's okay to be successful, but let's share the reality as well. And I'm not too proud. I mean, I do a lot of business meetings with a lot of important people in my pajamas, and I'm not talking like bottom down. I'm talking, I'm there in my dressing gown, and I'm there. Yeah, because what they're going to say? They're going to kick me off? They're going to say there's a dress code?
I love that. I'm not quite there yet, but I love it.
That's what happens when you get an OBE.
Well, exactly, yeah. So if I ever get an OBE, then hey, I told you, pajamas all day and night for me. I don't care what anyone says. Let's go on to Natasha. You did speak earlier about your time with your diagnosis. What is the biggest bit of advice that you could give to people who are tuned in right now to the discussion?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think what I've learned is we're all unique. And I think bipolar disorder is not a one size fits all. I learned that actually from writing my book and from getting more involved. I went on a mammoth journey, if anybody's read my book, with the alternatives. You know, I ran into the meditation centre in Manchester and told him that I was mentally unwell and could he help me? And it was the guy that was just volunteering on a Saturday afternoon. So that was slightly embarrassing. I got really into meditation. I've always done yoga. I call it normal yoga, but Kundalini yoga has been a massive outlet for me. I'd say the biggest thing for me is I had to get mentally stubborn with myself, mentally strong. So Beth will understand this. I found an amazing trainer, Anthony Zinwala, and he took me on to the British Championships, qualifiers in powerlifting, and I'm only little, I'm 4'11", but I've dropped with 80 kilos across my back at 57 kilo, and he's made me pick it back up and do it again. I believe you have to find something that gives you mental strength. I really believe that, but I also believe, and I say this in my book, and I think this is really true, because I think everybody's got magic in them. Everyone, you've just got to find it, and you know what it is you've got to find what your purpose is, and it might not even be until I'm 31, right? And it's only now I'm going, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You can find that light, and then you find that can't swear, but I've not been in a great place with my mum being in hospital, and that triggered me off. But writing and being creative, has been huge for me. And we've all got something, it might be cooking, it might be running, it might be powerlifting, it might be CrossFit. Find that one thing, or even books. I got really into books at one point, Do
you say like find something, and finding a purpose is really key? And I agree. And I don't want to, we have to fast forward just a little bit, because we're going to get onto the Q&A session right now. But I have a couple of quick questions, and we've got a couple of minutes to answer them. Okay, ladies. So April, to you, how have you been staying positive, just in a little ball for us?
In a little bowl, it started off ridiculous, very, very unwell. Not going to lie to you, very unwell. I was, what kept me well was doing the Bipolar UK lives. Every Wednesday I did a live with the Bipolar UK community, because guys, it works two ways. If I bring you a bit of comfort, great, but you guys bring me comfort every week. And the only reason I've managed to stay well and speak out about it is I always think, what did my 15-year-old self need? And that's the bowl. And thank you to my parents. Love you. Because I finally admitted I was unwell in lockdown, and it's the best thing I could have done.
Oh wow, well done.
Denial
April.
went.
Excellent. No, that's difficult, but you did it and you're doing it. So thank you for sharing. Before we go on to our Q&A, was it Bethany? Just one last question to you, and then we'll go into a Q&A. I know, a bit like myself, we don't tend to be around groups of people who also have bipolar. This is like a first for both of us. How have you found it so far?
Oh, so nice. It's really weird hearing how other people's stories are so similar to mine, like with Natasha, especially like the creativity. I'm also like an art teacher, so, and I've been an artist, and all of these things sort of, we've all got these similar stories. It makes me feel like validated that there are people out there that are like my twins. Yeah.
Found your tribe. I think we found a tribe.
Yeah.
To all of you, thank you so much. You're all amazing people. Of course, Bipolar UK on Twitter and everywhere else. You can see where you can follow us as well. That would be nice. And we could all just keep in touch. And of course, people viewing today, if you'd like to follow our journeys, then here we are. As I mentioned, if anyone is in crisis or feels unwell, please go to bipolaruk.org/crisis-support. There's a list of helplines and numbers for you. So thank you once again to our panelists. That's now the end of the panel discussion. We'll be moving on to the Q&A. But before we start, we have a couple of questions coming through regarding making a donation to Bipolar UK. So for anyone interested in donating, you can text bipolar to 70085. That's 700-85 to donate £5. Text costs £5 plus one standard rate message, and you'll be opting in to hear more about the charity's work and fundraising via the telephone and SMS. If you'd like to give £5 but do not wish to receive any marketing communications, that's absolutely fine. Text bipolar no info to 70085 instead. Okay, thank you so much in advance for that. So since last week, we have been receiving some fantastic questions from you attendees, you viewers today. Unfortunately, we don't have time to run through all of them, but we have got a little selection here. So I'll start off. Natasha, here's one. This question has actually been submitted for you. So one of our attendees has asked, how have you balanced being a mum with your bipolar and your career? And do you have any advice for a soon-to-be mum who was recently diagnosed?
My mum's been my mum and dad. She's been an incredible support, and I couldn't have done it without my mum. And my son is an incredible human being, and I wouldn't be alive now if it wasn't for my son. I think my son gave me my fight, because I remember wanting to throw the towel in this time last year when I was writing my book. And he turned around to me and he said, well, you know, just don't give up. Just don't give up. And, you know, sometimes you will feel guilt being a parent, because he's seen me, you know, in not great states. He's seen me hiding in wardrobes, having panic attacks. He's seen me dressed up as Princess Leia, thinking I'd started the COVID virus, dancing to the same song for 6 hours. But, you know, it's like, if I was ill in other ways, if he was seeing me, you know, having fit sex or, you know, anything like that, he would have had to witness that. My advice would be is that I think I'm a mum now with no support because my mum's not here. I found it incredibly difficult. So I take my hat off to people that are single parents. My best advice is, you know what, just grow through it together, because you know what, it's made my son one of the most incredible, considerate, human little people you would ever meet. And do you know what's amazing about him? He has more knowledge about bipolar disorder than the teachers in school. And, you know, I was having a panic attack in A&E last week, and they were calling security to remove me. and he was asking them, can I just show you the Bipolar UK chart, because I can show you where she is and what colour she is, because that's all that's if I show you that, you'll understand. He's 9 years old. So I think, you know what, embrace it. It's going to be a rocky road, it'll be a roller coaster, but I'm so proud of him, and we've done it together. And that's my advice. I would definitely say, because they keep you, he's kept me going. He's amazing.
Oh.
Children are amazing. They're very special. They're the future, aren't they?
Bless you. No, that is so nice. I know that for someone who's not a mum, as somebody who has bipolar, though, I have a certain fear. But that's a whole different webinar, which, you know, would be fantastic to speak about, definitely.
Yeah, come on.
Say that again, Natasha?
But I'm sure he'd be happy to come on to that one.
Yeah,
And give
I bet he's a right little character. It's amazing. And thanks, Natasha. Now, a question has been submitted by multiple attendees, this same question actually. Do other people feel ashamed of suffering from bipolar as I do? And has this stopped them from achieving or going for their goals? So I'd like to kind of, you know, put this across to a few of you. Emma, we haven't heard from you in a bit. What do you think? Has it, well, I know, like you say, it's affected you in a different way, but has it ever made you, have you ever gone through a stage where you've been really ashamed of it at all?
I wouldn't say ashamed, but I definitely have gone through stages, even though I personally haven't received a lot of bad towards me for it. I've gone through stages where I've been afraid to show or say, for fear of them not thinking that I can still be a professional person, or them not thinking I can keep up with my commitments, for fear of people worrying about how competent I could be around their children. So I definitely have been afraid of showing it. So maybe that was a phase where I was worried that it was my weakness, and actually maybe it was a lot of internal talk going on for me, because I definitely wasn't receiving outside criticism. But then when I have been brave, and I can remember times where I've been sweaty and terrified, and I thought I've just got to level with this person because they're letting me look after their child, or, you know, and I just feel like it's the most responsible thing for me to do, or I'm in charge of an important project. When I have leveled with them, and I have been met with understanding, but then I have been in a space where I've been able to educate them as I tell them. So yeah, I've definitely had moments where it's been intimidating to show that part, for fear of what might come. But then when I have done it, because I've been able to do it and educate at the same time, actually it's been okay. But it does require sweaty hands, and like sometimes
it tries a bit of time, but we get there. I'm going to bring Simon, CEO of Bipolar UK, into this in just a moment. I just wanted to ask April though. Somebody has written in and said, I go through stages of feeling motivated and excited about my future, I get that, to feeling enthusiastic and robbed of all ambition. Get that. How can I push through these feelings to achieve my goals and to stay driven? Because you're very driven yourself, as much as you can.
I hear you. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. The achievement begins when you get out of bed, and if that's all you achieve, that's more than a lot of people who live in our condition. And, you know, sometimes we don't even do it. Also remember, the day that you're productive, you're probably doing more than someone that doesn't live with bipolar in a week. And make a list. Just keep making a list. On my toughest days, I put do the washing up, take the bins out, anything. And I will always bring this back to my dad, who won't be watching because probably football's on. But when you give yourself a break, remember that, because similar to what Tash said, there's always magic in us. When I got diagnosed with bipolar, the first thing my dad said before anything else was, I always knew there was a spark of genius in you. So when
Wow.
that momentum slows down, when you're stuck in your head, and trust me, it just, we're making it, or we appear to be making it look quite easy, guys, and it's not. You know, we've managed
to do that, and I think that's why it's difficult to get diagnosed at times, because like you say, we manage just to make it. And my issue is people perceive me as super strong, so they feel like nothing breaks me, and they don't need to, you know, they could be badly behaved, but I can't have a down day because you're the strong one. But it's like, well, you see, when I got diagnosed, when I was ill, my family and friends, they didn't understand. And coming from Black community, in particular, mental illness just isn't a thing, you know. It's not something your dad said, oh, I knew you had a strike of genius. 9 out of 10, a Black parent would not say that to their child, you know. Not to say that it's saying, no, necessarily, I'm not saying that, but that's not how the mindset is. So it is a really difficult thing, but I rate you, so thank you.
No, I mean, he took me by surprise, because they had no idea, and even in lockdown they'd never been with me day to day with this illness, so it really took them back. And but you know, that motivation and that drive in you, which might have been there for 2 days but you lost it for 4 days, hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't gone anywhere. And you have superpowers. You do, when they're harnessed, when they're contained, or whatever you want to do with it. You have skills that no one else has living with bipolar. So give yourself a break.
But it's hard to put into practice. I mean, it really is. Like Steve said, so give yourself a break. I can write lists, but those lists can sometimes overwhelm me and then make me worse for a few days. So it's always just a learning process about ourselves. Let's bring Simon in. He's been so patient and looking wonderful there. Hi, Simon.
Thank you, Leah. It's very kind of you. Thank you. Wear a nice three-piece suit on a nice Tuesday evening, of course. So
you look fantastic. Thank you for making the effort. So somebody's written in, they said, my face-to-face support group is currently on hold due to the coronavirus pandemic. Do you know where people living with bipolar can access help during this time? It's so important. So many are struggling.
Yeah, I mean, usually we'd have about 80 face-to-face support groups all across the country, and it's really great seeing all the questions in the chat come through, because I'm seeing loads of familiar faces, co-facilitators on there. So highs wave to them. They're the people that make this charity possible. So obviously really sad because of COVID, we've had to suspend a lot of the groups just because of health and safety. So we're trying to pilot opening up a few of them just to see what's possible with the coming guidelines. But what we are doing is taking as many as possible online, and one of them is Zoom groups like this. So we're up to 40 groups now. We've got a national group that people can just dial into, and they don't need to know anyone there. It doesn't have to be from a particular area. We've also got our e-community, which has got over 6,000 people on it now. So whatever time of the day, if you want to talk to someone else who's affected by bipolar, you might be a close family member, you could be living with it. If you go to our e-community, then someone will be there that'll be able to respond to your comments, and just to be able to have a good natter in a chat as well.
I love that e-community. I sort of found out about it too late, and not too late, it's never too late, quite later in my journey, just simply because every time I looked up things about bipolar, I know many of you said you wanted to educate straight away. I couldn't do that, because every time I looked up things about it or read other people, it made me too emotional. It triggered me a lot. So when I got to that place and I discovered the e-community, it's brilliant, because you can just see and speak to other people who are just like you. Steve, this one, as our male panelist, one of us, obviously good too, it would be good to hear your thoughts on this. My husband was recently diagnosed with bipolar, somebody has written. He's quite a confident and proud person. So I would like guidance on how to support him without making him feel worse. Do you have any advice? That's a brilliant question.
It's a very good question. It's quite tricky to answer. I mean, I think there's two ways of looking at this. I think when somebody gets diagnosed with any kind of illness, it doesn't change who they fundamentally are. But also, when you get diagnosed with any kind of illness, you need to respond to the nature of that. I think I'm no less proud than when I was before I was diagnosed and before I experienced these things. My life is quite different. I think just supporting, and I think one of the challenges that my friend, who's kind of, she hates the term, so she wouldn't use the term carer. She's been my supporter. So actually, the language is really important. She's my supporter. She's been the person that's been there. I think at times it's been frustrating for her because she's almost wanted things to go quicker. I think she's not for me to kind of get better quicker, but I think it's so frustrating when you're seeing your loved one or your friend kind of really struggling. So I think just walking alongside that person, I think it's great when a partner takes an active interest in your life to any degree. But certainly around bipolar, I think there's definitely something I think it's a bit of a caricature really about men and mental illness. Actually, for me, the strength comes from facing my reality. I don't do myself any favors if I ignore that reality. And that reality, as I've said, is some days is I can't even think. And what it's taken me a really long time to accept, and I still really struggle, is on those days I'm no less valuable and I'm no less me. But it is a really good question, and I think it really calls into question how we as a society protect men and how we make it okay to be vulnerable. Bipolar disorder does open you up to vulnerability kind of initially, I think. Side effects of the medication, like you've just said, even reading about things, it's a whole journey. The fact that she even asked the question is the most important thing. The fact that she's asking for support, keep asking the questions, keep finding the support. One thing I would say to her, find a space you can vent in. I did a course called Mood on Track about how to manage bipolar disorder, and they then developed like almost a mirror of the course for the carers. And my friend went to it and she said it was great because we could just vent about how bad you all are. And I was like, do you know what? I love that, because living with someone with bipolar disorder is not easy. At times, I can be an absolute, it's not safe for work words. So that person, yeah, they love me, but they need space to go and debrief and to decompress. That's healthy. That's okay. And you're not betraying your loved one because you do that. So get the support that you need as well.
Two-way street, get the support if you're supporting someone. What I would say for somebody, if you are supporting somebody as well, is for me, consistency. I find it very triggering when people they're there 1 minute, they're gone the next. That I can't, my brain can't really compute that. So that I find difficult. But thank you for that. We are running out of time, so just have a couple more questions before I hand over to Simon. Bethany, somebody's written, I have always stayed clear of using social media to discuss my feelings and diagnosis for fear of being trolled. Have people found social media platforms to be helpful to discuss their experiences, or a hindrance because I'm too scared to try?
I have been trolled, but never really for the bipolar stuff. I've always had, it's been amazing. I've had a lot of support for anything that I've shared about my mental health, which I really didn't expect. The first time, if it is something you want to do, the first time I did it is I wrote the post in my notes, read through it a few times, put it up there, and then ran away from my phone, essentially. And they came back to it a couple of hours later, and I was met by so many supportive comments, and there was no negativity. It was so nice. And actually, one of the reasons I've continued to do it is because I know I'm helping other people, but I know April touched on this, is you guys help me. It's it is like a place to talk and a place where other people can like have that conversation, and writing it down is almost therapeutic for me. And now I've started to do more YouTube as well, and I found like it's really easy to go with like the ebbs and flows and only make videos when I'm feeling really good, but I've decided to commit to making videos every single week, which means I have to make them when I'm feeling low as well. But like I think Steve said, it's almost just like another part of you that is still you. And so I still talk about other stuff when I'm low as well, and it's just helped me to be me a bit more and to be honest about myself. So I found it really positive, actually.
And more empowering. Emma, sorry. How do you go about discussing your bipolar diagnosis in the workplace? I know you're very much about education, like you say. So somebody said, how do you go about that? And has anyone benefited from mentioning it to their colleagues, or is it better to just avoid telling anyone? So just quickly from you, Emma, and then if anybody else wants to jump in.
For me, it's definitely helped in my workplace to be completely open about it. And because I was working in senior management roles, what it actually did is it helped, this top down, it helped other people to then have space to speak with me. And actually what it helped was for me to identify when someone was struggling as well. So even if they weren't coming to me, I think when you've gone through an experience of diagnosis of bipolar or a mental health condition, you speak to people a little bit differently, and you notice things that other people don't notice because you see yourself and you see other versions of yourself when you've been struggling and whatever. So sometimes it helps you to, to be able to pull someone to the side and say, how are you really doing? What do you need? Do you need something space? Do you need a day off? And then it all comes tumbling out. So it's been positive in terms of accepting for me, but also it's helped others open up as well that I've seen. So that's just been my experience.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I think, like you say, it's about opening up. Do you guys feel the same, that it's worth telling people earlier on than hiding it?
Yeah, I think I think it was a requirement of my job to declare it, and that was really nerve-wracking because I work in a mental health school. But because, again, it's a mental health school, they were really understanding and they've been quite supportive. Although I feel like maybe everybody doesn't really get it, like maybe certain levels of the management don't really understand, and that's why we need sort of more media representation of what it actually is. But yeah, I was shocked at how supportive they were. Although I have declared it in a previous job and I had the opposite reaction, so I understand why people would be a bit apprehensive, because they had the media perception of what it is, which is just completely wrong. So and they were all quite older people, were quite set in their ways and didn't get it. But I think things have moved on since then. So yeah, and also it's you can't discriminate against people that have got a diagnosed condition. So if you're worried about it and you have to declare it, just look up all of the legal stuff behind it and just throw some legal lines at them and be like, you can't discriminate against me because it's a condition.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think I would always encourage people to kind of to be honest as possible, because you shouldn't be living in kind of hiding. I think part of the challenge is that stigma is one issue, but actually in some professions, the way that they are set up, it almost becomes a disciplinary process. There's some very archaic, especially within medicine as well. And whilst, legally speaking, somebody can't discriminate against you, I think the reality is that actually in some professions, people will get quite heavily discriminated against for speaking out, which is why, it's so important that we bring together around the campfire to have these discussions. But actually, I always remind people the work takes place away from Instagram and away from kind of, Facebook Live and all these sorts of things. There's so much kind of going on. And there's so much more that needs to go on to really make sure that, that's not fair. You should be able to say, I've got bipolar disorder, and that nobody thinks you're a bad mother, going to be a bad friend, not going to have my kids, going to be an unreliable worker, because it's just simply not true.
And also it's that when walking on eggshells or being overtly like, oh, that is really, that annoys me. It's kind of like, look, I'm cool, we're cool. I'll let you know if I'm ill. Until
Like
then,
not being crazy.
Yeah.
Like if you laugh too much, someone's like, it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Just chill, bro. Just let it. Or if you cry,
annoyed about something's going wrong, and you're like, "This isn't okay. Can we change this?" They're like, "Are you being over emotional?" No, it's an issue. You need to change it.
Well, guys, this really has been a pleasure for me. I hope it has been for everyone watching as well. I hope we get to do more of these because I think it's really important, and we could do different subjects maybe and go deeper into certain things. I wonder what the panel, what the viewers think at home. Simon, thank you so much for having us and the great work that Bipolar UK do. There's nobody else representing us the way Bipolar UK are nationally at the moment, and we hope to do a lot more with you. So I would just like to give you a virtual rousing applause to you and to the panel. Thank you so much, Natasha, Bethany, Steve, April, Emma, and I'll hand over to you now, Simon, for the final words.
Thanks, Leah, and a huge thank you to you, which is absolutely brilliant hosting and kind of keeping us all the time, which has been brilliant. I mean, as a charity, we use the term a lot, peer support. There's lots of things people need, ingredients to stay well, living well with bipolar, like medication, getting enough sleep, getting exercise. But really, a real key part of it is obviously being able to meet and talk to other people who are directly affected by bipolar. So either living with it or close friends and family, because it's only other people who have been through it that understand where you're coming from. And as Natasha said, everyone with bipolar is totally different or unique, and everyone who's affected by it's on their own journey about how to self-manage effectively. But everyone holds a little piece of the jigsaw as well. And it's by sharing those stories and those anecdotes that we're able to then find something, oh, well, maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll try a bit of powerlifting or a bit of cross training after this. Or certainly we'll be revising it with the charity for people that want to. I mean, as a charity, what we do is we bring people together to have these types of conversations. So we do it through our face-to-face groups when they're open, but more recently through Zoom. We also do them on our e-community. We've got a callback service. And on our website as well, as much of the content as we can that we put on the website is from people with lived experience and with doctors and clinicians who are kind of frontline, doing frontline work, who are working with people with bipolar on a daily basis. So all of it, as we try to be is true to people's lived experience. But we also said, as Steve said, as a charity, we try to fight the corner of people affected by bipolar, because as we said, it's hard enough living with the condition to have to worry about what's going to happen with the NHS and health and social care and medication. And so we started doing that with those of you who have taken Prayadol. We've been starting to do some campaigning on that, because I think it's totally disgraceful that a pharmaceutical company would even consider withdrawing some treatment that people rely on to stay well every day. So we've had some progress on that with the Secretary of State looking into it, and we had a ministerial response today, but we're going to keep on fighting on that, because people with bipolar deserve to be able to get the medication that they need to stay well. We want to run more of these. So if you guys are game on the panel, we'd love to organize them. Steve said on the pre-one, let's not over-promise, let's under-promise and over-deliver. So we'll perhaps organize another one either before Christmas or in the new year. And I'm sure we could have talked for another hour or certainly more. So it'd be really amazing to do that. Those of you who, I know people with bipolar, some people have got money, some people haven't. If you are able to donate, it means that we will be able to put the money towards more of these and more services as well for people affected by bipolar. So as Leah said, it's 785, text bipolar to 785, and that'll be a £5 donation. And if you don't want to get any more marketing material from us, why on earth you wouldn't want to hear from us more, I don't know, but if you do bipolar no info to 785, it's just the price of a coffee. Though if you're struggling, you don't have the money, then that's absolutely fine as well. Just dialing in, contributing, chatting about bipolar, and is really fantastic. And we're so grateful that you've all dialed in. So hopefully see you all again soon, and I hope you all have a really wonderful evening. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone. God
Thanks,
bless.
Leah.
Take
Thanks,
care.
April. Thanks, Bethany. Thanks, Natasha. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Steve. Have a great evening. Bye.